ACJJ, it is now time for Rex Brandstatter Senior Talk. It is brought to you by Windmill Manor and the Solon American Legion.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Well, hello to welcome and fellow seniors. What a beautiful day we have going here in November, the day before Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving coming early in the rotation because my brother's birthday is the 28th, and someday sometimes it's on his birthday, so we're getting Thanksgiving, I think, a little early this year, and which also says that when it's Thanksgiving that we've almost run the gamut with November, for gosh sake. Oh, well, it is what it is. Well, what a nice day it is. The sun's out, not much wind. It's a good, crisp fall day, good day to get out. If you do some outdoor things, today would be a wonderful day to do that, and for sure, I just want to say today is the day for Senior Talk, the weekly radio program, where we try to identify and examine and share important and timely information for you and we, fellow seniors. Thanks for tuning in as also and spending a few moments out of your busy day to listen to Senior Talk, and I'll do my very best to bring a lot of senior info to you and some fun recollections of people, places, things, and events. And sit back in your chair, grab yourself a sandwich and an ice cold root beer, and let's see what we can cook up. My name is Rex Brandstatter. I'm 74 years old, and I think that we seniors have a lot to talk about and a lot on our minds, and we're going to talk about it. I've got some interesting things today. Well, I've been a licensed real estate broker here in Iowa, working mostly in the Iowa City, Coralville, Johnson County area. Since 1974, helping lots and lots of people buy and sell homes, investment properties, commercial properties, and I have a feeling that I can probably help you. I am available to talk, and I'm at 319-330-5534. That's my senior line. 330-5534. And you don't if you're probably not sitting around thinking, well, we're going to move tomorrow or next week. That's not the case. I hope that's not the case. Even though I'm a realtor, I like to have you move, but it's got to be planned out when we're seniors. It's got to be something that comes up that maybe it's you can't go upstairs to the bedroom anymore, or downstairs to the basement to the washer dryer room, or maybe it's time that you've got a smaller house. Maybe it's time you needed to live on a different area of town, maybe a different area of the country. All these things that we could talk about and kind of come up with a good plan that's good for you. As you know, a lot of people say, well, this house is too big. And I always say this, is that the house hasn't changed, you have. Okay, your house is your house, and unless you built on or move the washer dryer up from the basement into the third bedroom now, which is now the laundry room, the house hasn't changed. You have. Your needs have changed. Whether that might be mobility in the house, maybe it might be you need to be closer to one side of the river or other, or whatever it might be. So those are things we would talk about. We would talk, maybe look out down the future, 3 to 4 to 5 years and things like that. That's what we talk about. It's not always, there's nothing to sign, no paperwork. We just sit and talk. And I do that at my office. I do that at your kitchen table. I do that at a coffee shop somewhere. And all you need to do, and I meet with you, the seniors. I meet with you and your friends. I meet with you and your family members, all kinds of things like that. Please give me a call at 319-330-5534. And that's the senior line, especially for you. If I'm not available to take the call, I certainly will call you back. Well, it was a fun night last Saturday night. I had here to admit that it was a great night. After that Iowa-Illinois football game, what a scene it was. Lots of fun, and it was a great weather day. When I say what a scene it was, it was Iowa clinched the Big Ten West, but in that it's the last home game, so all the seniors were there. Had the big flyover by the helicopters, 4 big helicopters, and the standard things, the accoutrements of a football game. They had veterans there, they had students there, they introduced all the seniors and the players and things like that. It was just a wonderful day to be there, and to top it all, Iowa won the big championship, and it was, I guess you would say it was our turn, and we deserved it. Not that other schools don't deserve it, but we don't care about other schools. We care about Iowa. So good for us. Congratulations out to the Hawkeyes and the coaching staff and all those involved over there. It takes basically, they say, a village to run a football team and get them going, and it certainly does. For my friend Greg Morse and his staff down there in the athletic equipment office, all those, it just takes the guys working, people, men and women, working up in the press box. Good for them. It's a big industry here in Iowa City because it's a University of Iowa, And it's a big deal, a huge deal, and we've accomplished another season, and good for us. We'll see how far we can go. I actually got quite an education while making myself present and enjoying some food and camaraderie at our tailgate last week over in this time I was in the dental parking lot. I was invited to be with some friends. I've been on the short loop here since my wife fell and broke her leg, and but thank you very much. She's coming around pretty good. She's no longer in a cast, no longer in a wheelchair, no longer on a walker, although she does use it. She's up to a cane, so things are coming strong. So I just haven't had the heart to tell her she probably can go to a tailgate, but I've left that up to her. She's not comfortable going. So I'm like a guy, I walk around with a sack of food, see if anybody wants me to stop in. Well, I was invited this week, as I have been, and I stopped in and talked to some people, good friends of ours, and I really got educated. And so we're standing in the typical couple hours before game time, and one guy says to me, he says, he said, I'm here today. I'm just 4 weeks out from hip replacement surgery at the university. 4 weeks. And he says, I don't have a cane, I don't have a walker. He says, I'm back to normal. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 weeks ago, he had a hip replacement. I said, for God's sakes, do you limp? Are do you have two people help you to your car? He goes, no. I walked over here. I'm going to walk to the game, walk back to my car, and we're going to drive home like any other people. I said, so the education came. I said, well, what? He says, well, I had the surgery at I think he said 10:30 in the morning, and he said they kicked me out and sent me home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to go rest and things like that. So another guy was standing there, and he said, how does that work? And he said, now, how does that fit? Is it the ball joint fits in there? Is it stainless steel? Is it plastic? Does it go up in there? And he's making motions with his hand, like wrapping his fist around his hand, open hand around the fist to show the ball. And he said, and the other guy gave instructions on how the ball and socket work, and they all knew parts and things like that. It was an educational thing while we're all having a root beer standing there. Maybe a beer. I forget which one it was now. So that was kind of lesson number one. I just kudos to my friend there who's 4 weeks out from hip replacement surgery at the university. And he was standing there. If he hadn't said anything, no, I don't think anybody really would have known, for sure. Well, I moved on over to say hi to a senior lady, and she was telling me, I said, how are you doing today? You're looking good, whatever the shtick is. He says, well, she said, I'm sure doing better after all of my back problems. Now, I have to tell you, in my history, my dad got beat up during World War II over in the service and over in France, and he spent some time in hospital. So all his adult life, he had a bad back. They come and go, kind of a chronic type thing, but it was all caused by in the service. So I'm kind of accustomed to that. The back problems are hard to fix. And I can tell you, I've got a long list of friends who have had back surgery, and they say it works. And I have another list just as long that said they have back surgery, and it didn't work. So I don't know anything. I'm not a doctor for sure, so I don't know much about it other than back problems are not, in all cases, easily fixable. She said, well, I went to the doc, and they said it was my knee. Remember, now her back was hurting. So she's telling me this while we're standing there at a tailgate. And they told me it was my knee. So I've been doing PT with the doc, trying to get my knee fixed, and my back keeps hurting. Well, they say it's out of line because of my knee, blah, 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 this, that. She said, I did this and that. She said, I went to a chiropractor, and the guy said, the fact is that I don't think it is your knee. What? She said, he said, I don't think it's your knee. And he did, he sent her down to the x-ray lab, and they did an x-ray, and sure enough, has slipped disc in her back. The chiropractor was right. All this time, all this pain and suffering, worried about her knee because they said it was out of balance, and the doc said it was out of balance and making her back hurt because her knee was all screwed up, things like that. Lo and behold, so I got that. That's education number 2. I solved back problems, and I was informed on how a hip replacement works. Well, there's another guy over there, and I said, well, I'm going to go talk to that guy. He's just sitting in a chair over there. He was drinking a beer. And I know him, and so I stood there while he sat there. I said, well, how's it going with you? He goes, well, listen, he says, I'm doing really well. I said, well, good for you. And then he said, now that I can see. I said, what do you mean, now that you can see? Well, he said today is Saturday. On Wednesday, I had cataract surgery. And actually, he said, the doc said you can drive. So he says, I'm doing quite well now that I had cataract surgery. And then he says, they sent me home like 2 hours later. I was there in the morning, had a surgery done in Waterloo area, I believe. And they sent me home. So I drove down here in my car. So all I wanted to do was just talk, football and the weather and the sports and what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And because I'm hanging around with a bunch of seniors, I got the medical update of the day. So my lesson learned is this. Don't talk to a senior about anything other than, don't attempt to talk to a senior about anything other than the sports, the weather, grandkids, whatever it might be. Or you'll be in the same boat I was in, all of a sudden, we seniors. So my other hint is this. When someone says to you, hi, Bob, or hi, Jane, how are you going? I think the lesson is just say, fine. Because it really, not everybody wants to hear about your bad back or your cataract surgery or things like that. But that's the nature of the beast. We all want to know, I had a broken hand, but I'm doing good, blah, blah, blah. Well, so be it. That was my deal for the day. Well, the deal for the day is this. 60 years ago today, a very tragic and sad thing happened in the United States. Our president was shot and killed. John Kennedy. President Kennedy was shot and killed 60 years ago today. Now, if you're a senior, you were certainly here. So that means that you have recollections of where you were or what happened that day and the few days thereafter, all the tumultuous things that took place. And I happened to be in the 9th grade in Coralville Junior High, and it was about 1 o'clock when I found out, and the teacher came in. I think the principal came into each room and made that announcement. And I don't remember if they sent us home or not to make any difference, but I know the teachers were all crying, and we didn't really comprehend. We comprehended that the president got shot for sure. But it was just a tragic day, and hopefully that never happens again, for gosh sakes. I personally think they haven't solved it. That's my take. I don't know about you. They've come up with a lot of culprits and substantiations and this and that and the other thing, but I don't think they've solved it. That's just me. I have my opinions, and I don't know what it's going to take to solve them 60 years later. Nothing I can do to do it, but I read the Warren Report after it came out like 2, 3, 4 years later, and that created more questions than it solved. So I guess the thing to do is remember that it was JFK, it was the President of the United States, regardless if you liked him or you didn't, made any difference at that point. He was assassinated, and our country had to move forward in a great upheaval ever since. So it was a tragedy, and may that never happen again. That was a big deal. It was certainly a big deal in the ensuing days and all the things that happened down there in Texas. Wow, this is just not good. It's not a great thing to remember other than the fact that we lost the president that day. So a senior man called me and said, he said, I am certain that we do not have water in the basement. Now, I'm certain of that. He said, we've lived here for, 15 years. I'm certain we don't have water in the basement. But he said, something? I know I heard our sump pump operate the other day. And he said, it hasn't rained around here forever. He says, what's going on with that? And I said, well, I can't really answer that. I said, there could be an issue with the sump pump itself. The only thing I can think of, it's never used, and maybe it's a default mode. I didn't have a good explanation, as you could tell. I said, the only thing I can tell you is I think you better have it checked out, because if it doesn't work and you need it sometime, kablooey. So he did. He went down there and looked at it, and he couldn't figure it out, so he called the plumber, and the plumber came over and said, well, you got a leak down here in the exit line, the discharge line of the sump pump. And he says, it looks like it's hardly ever run. He says, I don't know why. He says, I think what happened here, you had a power surge here in the house. Which, in all honesty, is what they had, because they had a power surge in the house, because we had to set all the clocks. Well, what it did was it did make the sump pump run, and the plumber said this their sump pit has the radon pipe in it, so they had to take a few things apart, which the standard homeowner can't do anymore. He doesn't want to do. Anyhow, so the plumber took a look at it and said, yeah, this thing is basically shot. It's 15 years old. It's never been run. You should get a new one. He says, I have one out in the truck if you want one. If you don't, I don't care, but you should. So we have an all-new sump pump for one that never ran. Well, the problem with it was it never ran. You know, if you have an old car sitting around and you don't ever run that car, your mechanic's going to tell you, you know, one thing you should do, you should run this car, for God's sake. Because the oil gets up in there and it gets in the valves and the pistons and the rockers and all those types of things, okay? Yeah, the oil all gets up there and feeds and moistens the gaskets. There's just a lot of good things when the motors run. So that's what this guy did, but he knew he didn't have water. He still doesn't have water. It was just that power source. Well, a senior called and asked this. We looked at a house, and the seller said, we have a radon level of over 3.9. Now, radon is a gas that lives in the soil in Iowa and a lot of other places. Iowa and Pennsylvania, by the way, are the two #1 states that have preponderance and occurrences of radon. Radon was put on Earth by God, I guess. I don't know who else. And it lives in the soil. And what radon wants to do is, radon is in the soil. And what radon wants to do is, radon's life goal is to get to Mars, get to the moon. And if your house is sitting on in the way, it's going to come in your basement floor. Or if you have a house on a slab, well, Rex, we don't have a basement, no problem. If you have a slab house, the radon is right below you, 4 to 6 inches or 8 inches away, the thickness of the cement. If you have any kind of a crack there, plumbing crack, anything like that, the stress crack, the radon can come in your house. So just because you don't have a basement doesn't mean you do not have radon. You very well could have elevated radon. So the industry standard is what they call 3.9 picocuries. In other words, parts per million. 3.9 parts per million and below is considered in that industry safe. 4.0 and above is considered the fact that it is unsafe, so to speak, and you need to have what they call mitigated. You need to have when I say a guy, it could be a woman, I don't know, the companies, have a guy come out and mitigate it. And what they do is they have to get down below the basement floor or your slab floor, and they have to go below that, and they have to put a pipe in there, and they have to take that pipe and run that pipe up into the attic, and through the attic out into above the roof. And they always try to do it on the side of the house or around the back of the house. The next time you're driving around the neighborhoods, look and see if you can see on the side of a house a big white pipe. It's a 4-inch ADS tube-like thing, plastic tube about big around as your fist. And sometimes you'll see it looks like a volleyball about halfway up, and it's kind of like a volleyball that's pushed down a little bit, so it's like a flattened volleyball kind of. That's a little motor. And when you plug that in, that creates a negative pressure below your basement floor or your slab floor, and the radon is dumb enough to go over to that, is sucked out of the building. That's what it amounts to, okay? If you don't have that, the radon just comes up in your house and languishes in your house. Now, is this a real industry or is it a manufactured industry? Well, in the real estate business, there's a lot of opinions about that. I would say, number one, did you ever read that Mrs. Smith died of radon? I've never read that. If you talk to the American Medical Association, they say this is why people who don't smoke a lot of times die because they've got lung cancer caused by radon. So the overriding preponderance here is who are you going to believe? Well, you're going to believe most people, the American Medical Association, the AMA, and they are the ones that are calling for it. So which has created an industry of people who test for radon and mitigate for radon. They come to your house and they have to get up in the attic to run it up, or they go outside the house. It's what it is. So if you want to sell your house, here's the deal. The buyer comes to your house, makes an offer, and you, okay, we're going to sell it for $250,000, and in that purchase agreement, it will say the buyer, at his or her expense, will have it tested for radon. And they bring a machine over about as big as a portable radio or an old CB radio or something like that, a little bit bigger than that. But they put it in your house, they plug it in and run it for a couple of days, and it spits out a scientific report, official scientific report of the level of radon. It gives you the average. It's in all houses, but sometimes the average is low. And it will tell you what's going to happen. Now, that's at the buyer's expense. Now, if you have radon in that purchase agreement you just signed, it usually says that if it's got radon, the seller will mitigate. So it's going to cost you $1,000 to $1,500 to $2,000 to fix it. If you say, forget it, I'm not going to fix it, then you have to go tell your realtor, which hopefully you have the realtor for sure. In the state of Iowa, you have to tell. In the purchase agreement, it's not required by the state. It'll say in there that the seller should mitigate it. Well, then you mitigate. You call another company that mitigates it, okay? Well, this senior called and said, we looked at the house, and the seller said, we have a radon level of over 3.9, but we're not going to fix it. He said, you, Mr. Barry, you can fix it or you can forget it, but we're not going to do it. Well, that's normal. That's fine. That's not normal, but that's okay. If those two agree to that, that's fine. The buyer could say, wait a minute, now you've got, I'm going to pick a number, you've got 6.5 level of radon. That's proven not to be safe. We're not going to buy this house. Well, folks, the fix on this is the mitigation. Nothing wrong with the house. The house is not going to fall down. The walls aren't going to cave in or anything like that. Not like it's kind of stupid termites. That could happen with termite. It's a fix. You call a guy, they come over, they go to your basement, they fix it. It's $1,000 to $2,000-ish. If you got a two-story, it can be more. If you have a house that already has a radon pipe in it, it's called passive radon, but it doesn't have that little motor in it, it could be like a $750 fix. That's the only part of the fix. So it's not the end of the world. If the seller says, my golly, we're not going to take care of it, that's part of the real estate deal that you two made. But it is fixable. Don't worry about it for sure. All right. A senior lady says to me, what do you think of a shingle roof that is 24 years old? She said, it's my roof and it looks good to me. And I said, are you a roofer? Not trying to be a smart aleck. She says, no. I said, have you been on the roof? Well, no. I said, well, let me tell you what I think about a 24-year-old roof. I think you're at 4 years over or more its active shelf life. I said, you're on borrowed time. Well, it looks great. Again, I said, you're not a roofer and you haven't been up there, so it looks good from the ground. Fine. Unless you get up and walk that roof and know what you're looking for, you're in trouble. You should have it looked at. So call a roofer. So most roofers, by the way, most asphalt shingle roofs, like on most houses, come with a 20-year shelf life. But if you read the small print, which nobody ever does, it also says that's maximum. Because extreme heat, weather, rain, and of course hail can beat the tar out of them. But all kinds of wind and freezing and cold freezing and thawing really, really hard on those shingle roofs. So I said, I think you're overdue. In my best opinion, you're overdue for a new roof. Okay. So I said, my opinion, you get a roofer up there or two. You get a couple ideas, get a couple different opinions. And by the way, I would get a couple different opinions for sure, different bids. They're going to look at more than the roof. They're going to look at your gutters to make sure the water's going down to the gutters and then down the downspouts. They're going to look at the sheetrock. The other thing they're going to look at while they're up there, which you might not know from the ground, is once they look at that, they're going to walk around if there's any sponginess up there. If they walk around and all of a sudden they stop and put all their weight on one foot and bounce a couple times, now you've got some leakage up there. Now you've got some plywood up there or ox board up there, OSB board. That's got a problem. So see, just because you can't see it from the roof doesn't mean you don't have roof problem. And what's your number one line of defense against the weather? Your roof. And then your siding and your downspout. So get on it, ma'am. Get on it for sure. Last week I was sitting right here in this chair at the KCJJ studios, and I was talking about some parks and playgrounds. And I was talking about the different playgrounds around town and the different things you could do at playground in the summer. It's a lot of fun. I ran the playground in Corville one summer, the summer of 1971. I was the playground director. And in Iowa City, they had, 4 or 5 or 6 playgrounds. And then at the end of the summer, you had activities. All the playgrounds went to the city park pool on the same day and had activities. Some of them with flag football teams. We had all kinds of different things. It was fun. It really was fun. So I said this. I said that the playground where the Johnson County Administration building stands, the building, that's where you get your license plates and pay your taxes. I said, I think that was called Happy Hollow. Well, I got a phone call from a friend of mine. My friend Ron called and said, well, you big dummy, so to speak. He said that was not Happy Hollow. It was a different name, and he gave me the name of it. And I said, I think you're probably right. Well, as soon as I said Happy Hollow, I knew I wasn't right. But I have a hard time apologizing when I think I'm right. So I didn't say anything, but I knew I was wrong, so I was going to fix it. So I had Ron's opinion, and I called a friend of mine. I said another Iowa City friend of mine, a longtime friend. I gave him a shot at it too, and they both gave me the same answer. So I'm here to tell you, number one, Happy Hollow Park is up on Brown Street. And the reason it's called Happy Hollow, because it's down in a hollow like that, but the real reason it's like that, I did some research there, is because Happy Hollow Park was hollowed out, a lot of it there, to make, because of the clay that was there, because they made brick out of it. Now, here's something I'm thinking about. I have no substantiation for this, but I'm thinking this. A lot of buildings around town, around Iowa City and Coralville, as a matter of fact, were made from brick that were locally made out of local clay and baked locally, for sure. Absolutely. Well, I was told that the dirt and the clay out of where the ball diamond is up at Brown Street, that they might have used that to build the first Shimmick School, which is right up on top of the hill, where the water tower used to be at the top of Summit Street up there. Dodge, top of Governor Street up there. Governor and Dodge up there. It's a house now, but that used to be Shimmick School. Did you know that? Well, I'm thinking if this brick, and I'm only thinking on this part of it, and that's a two-story brick. Take a drive up there, you'll see it was now a house, but it was a school. I think it was the 3rd Ward or 2nd Ward school in Iowa City. It's where the water tower used to be, right across the street for all the water in Iowa City. I'm thinking that mud could have come out of there and made the bricks up there. I've not looked at those bricks. I can't. It's private property. I can't go up there and take a look. So if you know anything about that, let me know. That'd be a great story of history that not many people would know. I think that's wonderful. So the other park I was telling you about that I was thinking was Happy Hollow, Rex was wrong. Let me state that right here on the air. My wife's not listening, so I'm happy to say that. I won't say it in front of her. Rex was wrong, so Happy Hollow's on Brown Street. The one I'm talking about at the administration building on about 900 South Dubuque is Elm Grove Park. Pretty sure. Elm Grove Playground, Elm Grove Park. So if you think that through, if you're a historian, right, think that through, where do the elm trees go there? There's no elm trees down there. That's where the National Guard Armory was. Well, because the Dutch elm probably took them all out. See, we have to put all these two and two together and come up with what we think is history. I think that's what happened down there. All right. They built the new building. By the way, the administration building is under repair. It's going to be for several months. If you go there, you can't go to that administration building. You go to the building right across the street, right to the north of Benton Street there, in the Health and Human HHS, the Health and Human Services building. Go in there. You can go in there and find the recorder. You can go in there and find the treasurer, all those type of things. The assessor's office of planning and zoning. It's all across the street while they fix the repair and do some updates to the administration building for sure. All right. I want to tell you something about a friend of mine. He's 65 years old. 1 week ago, my friend Dave Metzler, everybody knows him as Metz. So if you're in the bowling world, Metz is a bowler. Big time. Oh, is he a bowler? Is he a bowler? Let me tell you the story. Metz is a long time bowling, not a professional, but he might as well be. A long time bowling junkie, we'll call him, way past that. He was the operator of Coral Lanes for many years. He's been around bowling all the big tournaments around the United States. Well, a week ago he turned 60. He turned 65. He's official senior for sure. Well, I think last night or the night before he bowled a 300 game, folks. He bowled a 300 game. Let's hear it from my friend Metz. Everybody knows Metz if you're in the bowling world or just around town. But here's the other issue with that. It was his 32nd 300 game. Not his first, which would just cause me to go hoop-de-doo and jump up and down. And not his second, which would be like his 32nd hole-in-one, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Metzler, Metzy, just bowled that Colonial Lanes in Iowa City. He bowled his 32nd 300 game, perfect game. The old hats off to Metz for that 32nd 300 game. That's impossible. That's totally impossible. So a gutter ball, he doesn't probably even know what a gutter ball is. With talent like that. Thumbs up to our friend Metz. Metz bowled his 32nd 300 game. Isn't that wonderful, wonderful? Well, you know, when I talk about these little parks around town, many times I've talked about the park at the east end of Iowa Avenue, and then I talked about another park, Bella Vista, last week. Well, I want to tell you about another. It's a kind of a park area, and trust me, nobody goes there. Nobody goes there except the people who live over there. And I'm not trying to send you up there, but if you're all interested in this stuff and you haven't been there, I think you should go there. Just all you get to do is drive around the circle, but so be it. You'll know why I'm telling you this. So I talk a little bit about areas of Iowa City where people have visited, things like that. And as part of Manville Heights, there's a little area called Black Springs Circle. Have you ever heard of Black Springs Circle? You ever know anybody that lives up on Black Springs? Well, I have, for sure. I sold a house up there one time. Well, Black Springs Circle actually overlooks the Iowa River. And actually, now's a good time to drive up there and kind of drive slow. You can see between the houses. You can look down and you can see the Iowa River. Now, at one point in the late 1800s and early 1900s, that's where the big swimming hole was, actually in the early 1900s. They called it the Black Springs Circle. Everybody was swimming the Iowa River right down there where Crandy Park was, and just a little bit to the north there, right at the bottom of Dill Street. Say, if you ever want to injure your knees and kill yourself, I'll walk down Dill Street. If you walk up, which I've done and walked down on my walks, you walk up Dill Street, it's a breath taker, but it sure strains your legs and your muscles. It's a good exercise. If you walk down Dill Street, you got to take little bitty steps. It just kills your knees. So if you're challenged in either one of those two areas, stay away from Dill Street, for God's sake. But you could come in. You can come in from the other direction. Come in from the Teeters Court area up on Teeters. Teeters Court's up there by Lincoln School. Who was Mr. Teeters? Teeters Court, Teeters. Well, the first elected mayor of Iowa City, 1840. Just this little jab there for you. I hope you know these things. Well, why don't you drive up there? Why don't you go to Rocky Shore Drive, go underneath it's the first street to the north of the trestle, first street north of the Corville Strip, underneath the Crandy Trestle there. To the right is Dill Street, and you can take Dill Street up to the top of the hill. And when you get up to the top of the hill, it's kind of like a 3 or 4, where am I? It's kind of like a big wide open intersection up there. Just go about another 15 yards and turn to the left, and you'll be on Black Springs Circle. And you drive around. Actually, there's a couple of houses for sale up there right now. You drive around. It's got a beautiful view of the river. Now, there are many houses up there now, so it's not what it used to be back in the 1910s and 20s when they swam up there. But see if you can go up there. I'd like to have you know a little bit more about our town, and you don't get that sitting at home. I'd like to have you drive around and see some of these things, which is kind of fun. And I honestly don't know how it got its name, Black Springs Circle. I really don't know. It makes you think that the Black Springs, maybe there are black oaks up there, and there's a spring up there. It's part of Manville Heights. Could very well be just what I mentioned. Could very well been a spring up there. Although it seems to me that the spring is usually not on top of a hill. But maybe there was a spring that emptied down into the Iowa River up above up there. I just don't know the history of it. I'll work on some of that for sure. You all know that Johnson Street in Iowa City was named in Johnson County. It was Johnson Street, which is also the name of our county. Was named after the guy they called Rumsey Dumpsey, he killed Tecumseh, Richard Mentor Johnson, who is no longer our namesake for Johnson County. The people of Johnson County changed that to someone else. That's what that's the person who Johnson Street is named after. Now, some other obvious names in Iowa City: Dubuque Street, because that's the direction that Dubuque is, up to the northwest, and Dubuque Street runs north and south. Bloomington Street runs to the east and to the southeast. And Bloomington is named after Muscatine, Iowa, because Muscatine used to be called Bloomington. Before it was called Bloomington, do you know what Muscatine was called? Sure you do. It was called Casey's Woodpile. That's a true story. And, of course, we've got Davenport Street, which runs east and west towards Davenport, so those are pretty easy. Clinton Street was not named after a city, but Clinton Street in Iowa City was named after who? No, not Bill Clinton, President Clinton. It was named for DeWitt Clinton. He was the mayor of New York for 2 terms. Now, why? He must have been important when they named it back then, which is one of the very first names of streets. 1839, 1840, and it's, I think Clinton Street's the second widest street. Iowa Avenue is the widest street, and Clinton Avenue is the second widest, I do believe. Named after DeWitt Clinton, who was the mayor of New York for 2 terms. Summit Street was named because it's the highest point in the original city of Iowa City. It's 728 feet above sea level. And did you know, if you drive from Burlington Street and Summit Street, Go to that intersection and just drive west until you get down to the Iowa River. Of course, you'll be on the bridge. You've dropped 90 feet in elevation. 90 feet. That seems impossible, but that's what it is. So one of my goals is next spring I'm going to walk that area. I'm going to walk from the river up to 7th Street just to get the feel for the hill, because all we've ever do is drive it, of course. Now, Fairchild Street was named after Dr. Fairchild of Cincinnati, who gave the Iowa Territory some valuable maps. Now, where did he get the valuable map? I don't know, but he gave it to the Iowa Territory. Now, we were the Iowa Territory before we were a state. When did Iowa become a state? Raise your hand if you know when Iowa became a state. That's right. Molly's got it, 1846. That's exactly right. Exactly what she was going to say. Is that right? That's right. She said that's exactly what she was going to say. So 1846, the university got here in 1848. So all of these things, some of these don't make sense in today's world, I guess. Ralston Creek, Ronald Street was named after in honor of John Ronalds, one of the 3 commissioners who were selected by Governor Lucas, territorial Governor Lucas, to come out here and find a place for the old Capitol. Wow. That's who Ronald Street is named after. And Ralston Creek is named for Robert Ralston, another commissioner. So we've got the commissioners were who? Commissioners were Chauncey Swan, Ronalds, and Fairchild. No, excuse me, Ronalds and Ralston and Chauncey Swan. They chose to say, if you want to see some remnants of that, go back to that intersection. While you're at the intersection of Burlington Street and 7th Street, go south about to the intersection with Court Street there, and you will see a cement pilaster about 4 feet tall. That was the southeast corner. That's 1 mile to downtown. They went each direction a mile and put one of those in, and it's still there. Wow. I don't know, nor does anybody really know, how Brown Street got its name. Okay? Nobody really knows that. And, we've got all kinds of names like that. I'll work on these if it's of any interest of anybody. I will tell you this. That Kirkwood Avenue is named after Samuel Kirkwood, who came out here from Ohio, and he bought into the Corville Dam, and he owned and operated the flour mill out there and the grist mill. And he became a senator from Corville in Iowa City to the Iowa State Senate when it was in Iowa City. He rode his horse and or walked to legislature. Kirkwood Avenue is named after him. Kirkwood School. Kirkwood area education area is named after Samuel Kirkwood. He was our governor during the Civil War. We got lots of neat history, folks. I'll do my best to bring some to you. I hope you enjoy it. I have a lot of fun working on those things. So if you have something you'd like to know about a little history, I'll do my best to try to do some work. I'm working on some cemetery things right now. So this is Rex Brandstatter, and you can call me on my senior line at 319-330-5534. Thanks for listening. Go enjoy the weather. Go enjoy Turkey Day as we always have. I hope you get to see some family members and have a good experience. Go Hawks. We'll see you next time. So long.
Consistent quality and